Hello everyone out there and welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone's day is going well. So today my message title is Give Me the Crumbs. And so my message is coming out of the book of Matthew, the 15th chapter, the 22nd through the 28th verse, which talks about the Canaanite woman. Now, the Canaanite woman was not a part of the Jewish community, meaning she was not a Jew. She was considered a Gentile woman. She was a Gentile. And so at that time, her people, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about her people. Her people were considered, they were considered a cursed people, because if you go back into the Old Testament, and when you talk about Noah and his sons, his son Ham, it says that how he uncovered his father's nakedness. And after that, he cursed Ham. And see, Ham became the father of the Canaanites. And then, if you look in the book of Joshua, when Joshua was to go in and, he was leading the children of Israel into the promised land, the Canaanites was one of the people that God told him to destroy. And so the Canaanites were actually God's enemies. And so this woman had all this information. But the thing was, her daughter was being vexed and she had been overtaken with this demon. And so this demon had been tormenting this woman. Tormenting means she was going through physical and mental suffering. And so she was desperate, because this story is about the desperation and the faith of a woman, because she was desperate to get what she needed for her daughter. Because when your kids suffer, you suffer. It's almost like you feel their pain. And this woman had to been going through a lot, sitting by watching her daughter suffer with this demon. And so she was going to do whatever she had to do, no matter if she had to press through all these things she knew. Like I said, her people were rejected by God. But this did not deter her at all. She was determined she was going to get a miracle. She was going to press into the presence of Jesus. And so I want to read in the 15th chapter of Matthew, and I want to read that 22nd through that 28th verse. And it says, Behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she cried after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord. Yet, just show you how humble she was. She said, Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from the master's table. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, Oh, great is thy faith, be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that hour. And so she didn't care if she was rejected. She didn't care if Jesus ignored her. She was determined. She was determined she was not going to give up until she got what she needed for her daughter. And that's exactly what happened. She got her miracle. And see, this is a powerful lesson for us. When we are pursuing after things of God, when we are trying to receive, a promise from him or whatever, a prayer. Just because we pray and it seems like nothing is happening, we can't give up, because, we'll give up quickly when we don't see anything. We a lot of times we feel ignored. To tell you the truth, we might feel ignored by God. But it says in the word that the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous and his ears are open to our prayers. So he always hears your prayers, even though you might seem like you being ignored or rejected, or you feel like he has forgotten you. You have to not give up. He wants us to be persistent. For those things you want from him, those doors you want him to open. We have to be just like this woman and continue to pursue. In Hebrews 10:23, it says, hold fast the confession of your faith, nothing wavering, for he is faithful that promised. Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith it's impossible to please God, for he that cometh to him must believe that he is, and he is the rewarder of those that diligently seek him. That word diligently means that you are being persistent. You are pressing. You are pursuing him. It says he will reward you when you don't give up. He will reward you. So we have to continue to press on. We have to continue to press on. Not go by what it feels like, because you feel like he don't care. He does. He does. You have to keep on pressing on. As this woman did, she didn't care if he gave her the crumbs. She knew that even a little bit of Jesus would be sufficient enough to heal her daughter. And what did Jesus say? She had great faith. She had great faith. And I think God, sometimes he wants to see if we gonna be persistent in that thing that we are asking him for, or we just gonna give up. He might wait a while just to see, do you really want it? Do you really want what you asking him about? Because you think about all the things that you really wanted. You did not let that thing go until you got it. When you really want something, you're not going to let it go. You're not going to let it go. You're going to keep on pursuing it. And that's what he wants us to do. It made me think about when I was saved for like a year. And then God led me to my church. And how I had to be persistent in pursuing after the things of God, for us learning his word. And, just being in the place where he told me to be. And like I said, all the time, the things that he tell you to do is not going to be easy. And so when I first started going to my church, I was going to get myself together, to get myself healed. Because at that time, I was going through a lot of brokenness. And so I didn't bring my daughter that much, because at that time, my daughter was still at home with me. And so I had somebody to watch my daughter that has autism. But after I moved out of my house, it was just me and her. And I had been going to church, on a regular basis at that time, up until that time. And so in my mind, though, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do for us, bring her to church, how is she going to act, and, when people have autism, sometimes you don't know how they going to act, what kind of behavior they going to manifest. But when I first started bringing her, it was rough. It was really rough, because sometimes she would be acting up. She didn't want to sit there. She would run, whatever. But I was determined I was going to come and get all that Jesus wanted me to have. I knew that God wanted me to be at this church. And so I knew I had to press past what I felt, because you don't want people looking at them, staring at them when they acting up, making you feel uncomfortable. That's why a lot of people that have handicapped kids or grown-ups, they don't bring them to church, because they don't want people to look at them, be looking at you all crazy when they acting up and wondering what's wrong with you, or just making you feel uncomfortable, not making you feel not wanted or ignored a lot of times, because of what your kid is doing. But I didn't care. Because I knew that I wanted to get all that he had for me, and I was not finna quit. I don't care what she was doing. I still brought her anyway. Even when she didn't want to be there, I still brought her. That's what has got me to this point, because I pressed past the opposition. I pressed past how I felt. Because I wanted, like I said, I want everything that God has for me. And I know I had to be in my place. Despite having my child, I still had to press my way. And I would encourage the people that are dealing with the same thing that I'm dealing with, because it's not just me. You know, I used to go to the daycare, and the majority of the time it would be single mothers with their handicapped children, because a lot of times the men leave. And I'm not saying all men, but a lot of times the women are dealing with this on their own. And so having a church community is helpful in that. And some of these churches, you need to be more open to people when they dealing with problems. I know it can be hard, you know, for them disrupting the service, but they need that. They need to hear that word. They need to be in a congregation with other people, you know, so they don't feel alone and isolated. You know, and people need, you know, sometimes you need to be more compassion. Have more compassion for people, because you don't know what they have to deal with. It's a lot more. It's a lot more than you think. You know. You know, you need to learn how to make people feel welcome. You know, when they pressing their way out. But God has helped me to overcome, because like I said, I was determined. I don't care if people looking at me, staring at me, or wondering why my child doing certain things. I knew I had to press past that to get what God had for me. And that's what has brought me to this point. And my child actually has got to the point where she sit down. And we were going to a lot of, I mean, we had church Sunday night, and Wednesday night. I was taking her to all these services, and God has got her to the point where she sits through all of this. This is not normal. It's because I have pressed my way to get what I needed. And so I just wanted to talk about a little bit what I done been through. But God, He rewards faith. He will reward your faith, so be persistent. And I want to read one more scripture before I'm done. In the book of Luke, the 18th chapter, the 1st through the 8th verse, which talks about the unjust judge. But this was a parable that Jesus was giving. And it says in that first verse, it says, and he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought to always pray and not faint, saying, there was in a city a judge which feared not God, neither regarded man. And there was a widow in that city, and she came unto him, saying, avenge me of my adversary. And he would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubled me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she worry me. You know, this widow was wearing the judge out, because she was determined that she was going to get vengeance. And the Lord said, hear what the unjust judge saith. And shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them? I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? And so I just want to end this by saying, be persistent and continue to pursue and press until God's presence. Amen. Bye-bye for now.